Hello, it's Nikki, and welcome to this very special episode that you are receiving on Boxing Day. This is something that I've wanted to talk about because I've had questions about it, and so I thought I would do a little episode about it. So if you have been a long listener of the podcast, you will have heard me talking about a word of the year and why I do this and how it shows up. And many of you have been on this journey, the J word, with me, and have been asking me how it went and what happened. And at the beginning of this year, I talked about flying, and that was going to be my word of the year. And as we get closer to the end of the year, I thought that it was important to talk about and to reflect on that and see how it's shown up. So this year, the year of 2021, my word of the year was fly. And I knew that I was turning 40 this year. It was last month in November. And the impending big birthday, it felt really significant. But strangely enough, as soon as the day arrived, the age itself felt very insignificant. And I pretty much felt the same. And one thing that I should say on that is, you get to decide when you do the things and that it's actually all down to you. That was a big lesson. I thought I would wake up on my 40th birthday and feel completely different about things and have all this fearlessness that I had wanted. And actually I felt the same. And sometimes that can be almost disappointing because you have that moment of thinking, oh, I've still got to work with what I have. There isn't going to be some kind of magical hand that comes and scoops everything up. And sometimes I've heard pop stars talking about this. Not that I'm saying I'm a pop star by any means, but when they say, like, I had loads of sexual partners, let's call them that because maybe they weren't relationships, lots of sexual partners, loads of money, a big house, adoring fans. And I remember Robbie Williams saying this of like, yeah, I still didn't feel happy. I felt depressed. And it used to annoy me when I used to hear him talking in that way. I mean, yeah, that's me being very honest. Like, how can you not be happy when there are so many people in the world that have so much less? And it comes back to that sense of who you are and your relationship with yourself. And maybe he didn't like himself very much at that point, or maybe there was other kind of issues going on, or maybe there was trauma from the past that he needed to deal with. And I think sometimes there's this sense that as soon as something happens, and I know I've had this conversation with women, like as soon as they have a baby, or as soon as they get a job promotion, or as soon as they get married, there is this sense or hope perhaps that, oh, I'll be happy now and everything will fall into place and be complete. And actually, it's all a work in progress and it's all a very gradual process that needs to be looked at. But I chose fly this year because I wanted to explore that sense of letting go and going with the flow. And I've worked hard for years and years and years, and I really feel like I was one of those children that was always thinking about my career, even when I was like 5 or 6. And certainly like my training that I did as a dancer, as an actor, that is a very different mindset. If you know that you want to do something professionally from quite a young age, it's almost like teachers pick up on it and they go, great, okay, we've got to try and support you in the way that we can. And certainly throughout a lot of school, I felt that I was just in the waiting room. Like, I'm just here for a couple of more years and then I'll get going with my life. So I feel like I've worked really hard for years, building and creating and learning and experimenting and failing again. And at the beginning of this year, I wanted to explore the possibility of what could happen if all those doing hours had been enough, and that I could allow myself to settle into this next phrase and to be about embodying them and being and trusting that I guess I built up enough experience or skills or talents that I can just really embrace it and trust that I can be in the metaphorical air gliding because I've done the work. However, here's what I've learned. Number one, flying is a spectrum. So take an actual plane, for example. It's technically flying when it leaves the ground, but it can also reach thousands of feet above ground. And given the state of the world, the current state, and perhaps the future state, it was important throughout this year to really tune into my circumstances, not just my close circumstances, but really feel into what was happening out there as well. And it was very important and respectful to be aware of what my capabilities were. And the big soaring, flying, somersaulty moments might have been in the past the big jazzy stuff. So the big jazzy income goals, or the big jazzy life decision moments, or a holiday with my kids, or I don't know, landing an amazing speaking gig, or reaching something amazing with my podcast. And yes, those big highs came, but also there were many, many days where I just felt like I was flying, but I was hovering above the ground, but I was in motion and I was doing it. And I think you have to have a sense of the importance of both. And I made a decision just to be in momentum sometimes and make them just as valid, those small moments, that you don't get to do the big soaring and the big somersaulty moments unless you are doing the stuff that supports you, that gives you that trust that you can get up to those high moments. And what happens very quickly if something comes by surprise, what might happen is you soar really high and then you might splat on the ground. And making that decision to honor all of it was really, really important, just to be in the air, enjoying the moment. And sometimes it was just metaphorically a little bit up. That was it. Number two, grounding is really important. So I often talk about polarity and the importance of having those two sides of the coin. That there was a lot of times when I was flying and I was growing and being stretched and challenged. So therefore I needed to ground as well. And there's been other stuff behind the scenes this year, which has been really important in my life, and I'll tell you more about this in the new year, but it's almost been like learning a brand new skill set and really making some big grown up, heavy at times, but exciting also decisions. And so that sense of grounding has never been more needed. I've needed the space. I've needed the gaps. I've needed to be able to just breathe or surrender or trust or pull away and give myself distance. And I've gone back through all of those moments to those affirmations of two that kind of come to mind. One has been, it has to be right, not rushed. This has been game changing for me because I have the ability in myself to be really solution orientated. And what that can sometimes mean is I'll have a sense of like, don't worry, I'll be able to sort it out later. Don't worry, it'll all be cool. Like, let's just do this bit and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And given some of the decisions that I've been making in my life and my business, I haven't been able to have that confidence or that optimism or mess about with it and just say, yeah, no worries, it'll be fine. So this sense of right, not rushed has been really key for me. And it's brought up some really great things. Another one that I've been using a lot is it's this or it's something better. I've really been learning the act of surrendering, because there's been a couple of times where I've been really, really close to things. And I've noticed this a lot in my life. I've probably told this story on a podcast before, but just before I met Matt about 15 years ago, I was down to the last two for a role in Emmerdale. And it was a big lead, and it was quite a controversial character. And I didn't get the job. And I'd had so many callbacks and, can you come in? Can you meet the director? We'd love to see you again. Can you change this, this and this? And every single time I went back, I got closer and closer. And I didn't get the job in the end. And I was really upset at the time. And then a couple of weeks later, I met Matt. And not saying that the two wouldn't have necessarily happened, but it would have meant leaving London. It would have meant leading a completely different life and moving to Yorkshire and maybe not having these two children that I have. And so I've really learned this sense of this or something better, this or something better. And that comes from Gabrielle Bernstein. It's a really great phrase, because it keeps you in that sense of it's all going to be okay. It's all going to be okay, because I think sometimes we can look for signs, or we have our heart set on something, and then when it doesn't work out, it can really, really sting at the time. So if you can have, even if it's just a tiny bit of optimism in the back of your head of like this or something better, it's really going to help heal that process. Another thing that I've really noticed is where my, let's call it shit, everybody, where my shit has shown up. So there have been times where I've been in full flying mode, where, and see, like I'm taking a big deep breath as I say this, I've been in full flying mode, like things are falling into place. They felt really easy and beautiful and aligned. And then I get worried that I shouldn't get too comfortable. And this is sometimes, I think, come from acting, perhaps, or being a woman in business, where there was always this sense like you only had one shot at something. How often do we hear that on the X Factor, where people say, this is my dream, this is my last chance, this is my one opportunity to do that. And actually, when we look at life, there's very few one opportunities. We are constantly reinventing ourselves and opening ourselves up to new possibilities. And it's okay, and it's a work in progress, to be okay with success. And I guess what I was paying attention to was all of these moments of don't get too comfortable, or it won't last forever, or you'll probably plummet back down to where you were before, which was actually not a bad place at all. And that's been really interesting for me. And it's revealed to me there is still so much work for me to do around that, and to get comfortable with success and owning it and knowing what to do with it. How's that come up for you? Yeah, it's a juicy one. Yeah, I'm going to leave that one there, because I could go in all kinds of directions, but I would love to know what happens with you. Number 4, in this flying period of 2021, I've really learnt how to play with pace and rhythm. And there have been some weeks or times or even months where it's been absolutely fine just to chug, just to kind of gently hum along and keep things very, very simple. And then there's been times where I've done the equivalent, and I know I'm mixing my vehicles here, sorry about that. Oscar, age 3, would not be happy with this. But there have been also times where I've known that a situation or a circumstance has needed a different flavour from me, a different rhythm. So I've really learnt this year when to go into that 5th gear and get hungry and show that I'm ready and pull out all the stops and go one step further, or to give more than is expected. And often those moments pay off. But equally, those moments of chugging along, be there, consistent, they also add up as well. I want to talk about Johannes from Strictly, if you watch Strictly this season. And he was the semi-finalist. And to me, he is an incredible performer. Not just technically, but there's something about that man that gives you a piece of his heart, a bit of his soul. Like, he dances like his life depended on it. And I was talking to my family about this, and we all watch it together. And I was talking about how he started, Johannes, as when he was beginning his Strictly time. And maybe for 3 or 4 years, he was ensemble. So he was one of the background dancers. He was there, he was doing the things. And to me now, to see him, even though it probably frustrated him at the time, I mean, I don't know the guy, thinking, why have I not been picked? Why haven't I been given a partner yet? Why am I still proving myself? There was part of him that maybe was like, don't worry, I've got time. It's all right. It's all right. And then when his time came, up he came. And you noticed him. But I noticed him when he was in that ensemble. But finally, when he got that partner, it was such a joy because I'd seen that journey that he'd been on. And so there might be things in your career and your life which happen really quickly, really easy, and they fall into place like it's nothing. And the result that you want comes really quickly. But equally, there might be things that behind the scenes you're like, when is this ever going to happen? Come on, I'm doing all of the things. And remember, usually it just takes one step. It takes one tip. You might have been lining up those dominoes for ages and ages and ages and creating the patterns and lining them up and getting frustrated. And then remember, it just takes one push of that first domino and off it goes and it creates something. So remember that analogy. I'm sure it will really help you. Number 5, learn to fly. Well, I had a run yesterday and I didn't really want to go, but I know myself at the moment, I am quite tired, and also the world feels a bit weird at the moment, and we had some really lovely plans and we had to cancel them, not because we're unwell, but we thought it was the right thing to do. And it was disappointing and it was frustrating. And when I get into that headspace, I always go back to movement. So move your body and get rid of that gunk. And it doesn't take long, actually. I can go for a walk or a run. And very quickly, I feel like I can just slide that goop or that mental cloudiness out the way. I mean, not completely. It doesn't cure everything. But I do get clarity from it. Anyway, yesterday, I knew that I needed to do that. And I went out for a run, not at my usual time either. I went just before lunch, which is a silly time for me because I am the sort of person that's already thinking about their lunch about 10:30 in the morning. And I went out about 11:15. I'm much better, like early doors, have a bit of breakfast and then go. And I had a really slow, unimpressive, let's just say. I mean, I'm never going to be an Olympian, but it was unimpressive for me. Like, wow, it was stop-start. I was walking a bit. It was very directionless, this run. And I very quickly got myself, and it was my first day of my period as well, let's just be honest as well. And I very quickly got myself into that headspace of going, oh, gosh, wow, you've gone backwards. You've done this. Oh, I can't believe it. You know, you were running a half marathon at the beginning of the year, and now you can barely run 100 meters. What's going on? And I got into this really funky headspace. And as I came out of the gates of the park, I ran through the gates and then I ran back into the park because I knew I'd missed something. And this had been there for a while, this poster, but for the first time it spoke to me and it made me chuckle, and I ran back and I took a photo of it. And this poster says, "Learn to fly." And it was such a reminder. Do the work, just be there, keep showing up, give it a go, pick yourself up, rest when you need to, and then have a go. And it really reminded me that this next chapter of what I want, I'm trying to build a lifestyle, a culture, a habit, a mission, an ethos, a set of values, a way of being. And if I am going to be committed to that, I can't just be that person who's like, didn't fly today, I'm rubbish, right, I'll never fly again. No, that's not going to help me. As much as I want it to, or as much as I vocalize it, I have to learn to fly, to be in the game. And being in the game of that next level means being in the game of grounding and resting and surrendering and trusting and meditating and relaxing and yogaing and all the things. I hope this has been useful for you today. If already you have got clarity over the last few days, I would love to point you to some resources. The first thing I want to share is about goal setting. You really planning out what you want for this next chapter. And again, there will be somebody that will say is like, the world is so unpredictable. Like, do I even do this right now? Yes, you do. Because if you have an intention to keep going, or to put food on your table, or to be in business, or to survive at the end of all this madness, work smartly, not hard. And I know that you're probably going to have less time or less inclination. So make the things that you do count. So that goal setting course is really brilliant for you. I'm going to leave all the details down below. I am also offering sessions for January. I am checking my emails over the next few days, and I'm not sort of technically closing down for Christmas. So if you want to book some time in with me, please let me know, and let me know what you want. I tell you what, vocalizing that is absolutely the first step, and making it real. And even from that chat, I know that you'll get so much from it. Equally, if you want to be supported for the next 6 months, if you're like, do you know what, I really need to do this, and having somebody by my side from January to June, it would feel really, really good. So let me be that person for you. Again, you can find out more details on your personal brand plan. And again, I'll leave all the details down below. That's it for today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Enjoy your Boxing Day, whatever you're doing. And I'm going to be here quite a lot over the next few days, and helping you to plan some really excellent, solid goals, but also just getting your imagination going, and hopefully being that positive light, that safe space for you. And I would love you to join me. All right, lots of love. Have a lovely, lovely day, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.